A wealthy woman mocks a young waiter, forcing him to sing for her amusement. But when his voice fills the room, the tables turn, leaving her stunned and questioning everything. It was a Saturday night at the Ivy Room, an exclusive restaurant tucked in the heart of Charleston's historic district. The kind of place where the flickering glow of candlelight danced across polished wood and soft jazz floated through the air like a whisper. Inside, the crowd was predictably high society, bankers celebrating lucrative deals, couples indulging in anniversary dinners, and groups of old money friends trading witticisms over cocktails crafted with meticulous precision. Among them sat Beatrice Linton, a woman in her late 50s whose designer wardrobe and diamond earrings seemed to demand attention. Her presence was commanding, her laugh too loud, her gestures theatrical, as though every word she spoke deserved an audience. She thrived on being the center of attention, and tonight was no different. Her table mates, three equally polished individuals who wore their wealth like a second skin, let her dominate the conversation, nodding along and occasionally interjecting with flattery. A young waiter approached their table, carrying himself with practiced poise. His name tag read Javier, though he exuded a formality that kept such personal details at arm's length. Early 20s, tall and unassuming, he moved with the precision of someone taught that errors weren't an option. His voice was calm as he recited the specials, his eyes carefully avoiding direct contact with the patrons. Beatrice interrupted him mid-sentence. "Why so serious, Javier?" she asked, her tone dripping with mock cheerfulness. "You're working in one of the best restaurants in the city. Smile a little." Javier's lips twitched into a brief, practiced smile. It didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, ma'am. Is there anything else I can assist you with?" Beatrice leaned back, swirling the golden liquid in her glass as her companions chuckled. "Oh, I'm sure you can. But tell me, how does someone like you end up here? This job can't be your dream." Javier's fingers tightened briefly on the edge of his tray, but his expression didn't change. "I enjoy what I do, ma'am," he said evenly. His response seemed to frustrate her. She tilted her head, her eyes narrowing slightly as though she was sizing him up. "Enjoy it, really?" she asked, her voice rising just enough to draw the attention of the surrounding tables. "Come now, surely you have bigger aspirations. Or," she trailed off, her smile growing sharper, "do you have any hidden talents we should know about?" Javier paused, his gaze flickering to hers for the briefest of moments before he resumed his task of clearing their plates. "I just focus on doing my job well, ma'am." "Oh, come on," Beatrice pressed, waving her hand dismissively. "I heard that people from your background often have musical gifts. Can you sing?" Her companions exchanged uneasy glances. One of them muttered something under their breath, but Beatrice was undeterred. Her eyes sparkled with the thrill of the game. Javier straightened, his tray balanced expertly on one hand. His face remained composed, but there was a tension in his jaw. "I don't think that would be appropriate, ma'am." "Oh, don't be shy," she insisted, leaning forward. "It's all in good fun. Let's hear something. What do you have to lose?" The silence that followed was heavy, stretching uncomfortably as other diners began to take notice. Even the jazz trio in the corner seemed to falter slightly, their rhythm dipping as the tension in the room thickened. Javier's gaze swept the room briefly before returning to Beatrice. He took a deep breath. "If it will make you happy, ma'am." Beatrice smiled triumphantly, reclining in her chair. Her friends looked on, some curious, others clearly uncomfortable. Nearby diners leaned in, their curiosity piqued. Javier set his tray down on an unoccupied table and straightened. For a moment, he closed his eyes, drawing in another steadying breath. When he opened them, something shifted. The air seemed to grow heavier, quieter. He began to hum, the sound soft and low, resonating with an unexpected richness. The first notes of his song floated through the room like a breeze, delicate yet powerful. It wasn't just a performance. It was raw, unguarded emotion made audible. The melody carried an ache that silenced the room, a story of struggle and resilience that demanded attention. Conversations halted. Forks paused mid-air. The jazz trio set down their instruments, their eyes wide with surprise. Javier's voice grew stronger, filling every corner of the restaurant with a haunting beauty. It was a timeless song, one that some recognized as a hymn, but the way he sang it made it feel entirely his own. Each note was imbued with a depth of feeling that made the lyrics resonate on a primal level. He sang not as a waiter performing for a patron, but as a soul sharing its truth. Beatrice's smug expression vanished almost immediately. Her hand, which had been lazily swirling her drink, froze. Her eyes widened, as though she were seeing him for the first time. Around her, people began to lean forward, captivated. A waitress near the kitchen dabbed at her eyes with her apron. A couple at the bar sat motionless, their gazes locked on Javier. Even the chef peeked out from the kitchen, his arms crossed over his chest as he listened. The final notes of the song lingered in the air, trembling with the weight of the moment. For a second, the restaurant was utterly still. Then, slowly, the sound of applause began to ripple through the room. It grew, swelling into a thunderous ovation that brought patrons to their feet. Some clapped, others cheered, and a few wiped tears from their cheeks. Javier inclined his head in acknowledgement, his expression calm, though his chest rose and fell with the effort of the performance. He picked up his tray and returned to his duties, moving as though nothing extraordinary had occurred. Beatrice sat frozen, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Her face was pale, her expression unreadable. Her friends avoided meeting her eyes, their discomfort palpable. One of them broke the silence. Well, that was something else. Beatrice didn't respond. She reached for her glass but didn't drink, setting it down with a trembling hand. Her gaze followed Javier as he moved between tables, each step measured and purposeful. The once commanding presence she projected seemed diminished, as though she were grappling with something unfamiliar. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Beatrice's tablemates tried to steer the conversation toward lighter topics, but the mood had shifted irreversibly. When the check arrived, Beatrice hesitated before reaching for her wallet. She pulled out a crisp bill and folded it into the check presenter, but then paused. With a pen, she scribbled something on the back of the receipt before closing it. As the group left the restaurant, Beatrice lingered behind. She cast one last glance around the room, her eyes landing on Javier. He didn't look her way. She stepped out into the cool night air, her thoughts heavy and unspoken. Back in the restaurant, Javier collected the check presenter from their table. Inside, he found the bill and the note. He unfolded it, reading the delicate handwriting. "Your voice has a power I didn't expect. Thank you for reminding me what humility sounds like." Javier folded the note and tucked it into his pocket, his expression unreadable. He returned to his tasks, moving seamlessly through the restaurant, as if the moment hadn't happened. That night, Beatrice sat alone in her spacious living room, staring out at the Charleston harbor. The words and the music replayed in her mind, challenging her to confront parts of herself she had long ignored. For the first time in years, she felt the stirrings of change, small but undeniable. Meanwhile, in his modest apartment, Javier placed the note on his kitchen counter and leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. He didn't need the note to validate him. His voice, his truth, had always been enough. But it was a rare acknowledgement of something deeper, something that transcended roles and expectations. And that, he thought, was worth more than anything money could buy.